Good afternoon, everybody. This is Mandy with Moon Forest. I'm coming to you under the barn, chicken shed, whatever you want to call it today, because we are getting rain. I'm so excited. We needed a rain, especially after I put my free plants into their free bed today. And hopefully they will grow. But I was so hoping we would get some rain on them, and it looks like we did get a little shower. Still kind of showering now. Love the sound of the rain on the tin roof. And then I have the little chicks behind me. And then also another exciting thing that happened today is we went to town for a little bit, and when we came back, a swarm of bees has landed on one of my pine branches in the tree out by my garden. And I hope, fingers crossed, I hope they will decide to stay there. They've done it the last couple of years and they haven't stayed, but I'm hoping that they decide to stay because we don't have bee boxes yet. Eventually, that is something that we are wanting to do later on, but it's just not in the cards right at the moment. Talking about in the cards right at the moment, that's what I wanted to talk to everybody about today. You know, I came on and I done a video, if you haven't seen it, about a free resource, Gin Trash, which is composted cotton leftovers, basically, after they process the cotton. It's leaves, stems, seeds, all kinds of things that has been sitting out and composted, and we went and got a load. There's a video that I've already put out about that experience. If you want to check that out and learn a little bit more about Gin Trash. But it got me to thinking, you know, I watch a lot of different YouTube channels, and shout out to everybody that's out there doing the homesteading and the gardening. Oh my gosh, y'all are teaching me so much. And I just want to share, if anyone stumbles across my channel, I want to share, you know, what I learned and some other things outside the box. Because a lot of the channels that are out there, their gardens are already established and they've been doing it for quite some time, and so they have a lot of resources already, and they're able to purchase things like landscape fabric and, you know, cool row covers and things along those lines. And right now, with the pandemic going on and we're just now starting out gardening, you know, we don't have a lot of extra money in our budget to purchase some of these supplies. So I'm trying to resource free materials as much as I possibly can. And I wanted to share some of the ways that I have resourced free materials and some of the other ideas to just get you thinking outside the box. Because basically, if you start thinking outside the box, there's a lot of things that you'll see in a lot of different places. On that note, one of the things that I want to share with you that I just got a couple days ago that really is coming in handy is I went and got a complete truckload of cardboard. Now, the cardboard is something that I can't afford to go and buy landscape fabric right now. My garden budget is just going towards seeds and things, so I wanted something to help be a weed barrier along the edge of my rows and down the middles. And as of right now, with it being summer that I started gardening, I don't have a lot of leaf material in my yard because it had already been mowed and took care of. So I don't have a lot of that stuff to use in the garden. I've used just about all that I have. So what I am doing is I'm taking that cardboard and I'm laying it out on top of the grass where I don't want grass to grow. And I'm wetting it down, or letting the rain wet it down today. Thank goodness for the rain. But I'm letting it sink down, and it will actually kill the grass. And in some instances, I am also weighting it down. I got a bug. That's what happens when you sit out by the chickens. Oh, I got a bug coming all up on my face. Y'all get to see me cross-eyed trying to look at it. But anyway, back to the cardboard. You lay the cardboard down and you wet it or weight it down, either one. But you can wet it down and it will actually mold down onto the top of the grass and kill the grasses that's under it. Another benefit That's my Henry. He's got to interrupt. Another benefit to using the cardboard is if you've ever left a piece of cardboard box or anything outside in your yard for any length of time and it's gotten rained on, and it's gotten wet, and then you've went to move it, I'm sure that underneath it was full of worms and beneficial insects, and that is one thing. Okay, Henry, that's enough. That is one thing that, you know, the cardboard is good. It will bring in more beneficial insects and worms and things over to your garden. Oh my goodness, this rooster is not going to let me talk. Oh goodness. Between the rooster and the bugs, it'll be a miracle I get this video out. But I may have to move. Okay, I'm back, y'all. Sorry about that. Henry was just on one today. He's so cute, though. You gotta love him. But anyway, I was talking about the cardboard and where I got it from. I actually went to one of my local 99-cent stores or dollar stores, whatever you want to call them, and I didn't just go and just get the cardboard. I went in first and I asked the manager if it would be all right if I got some of the cardboard that they had sitting out back in the big bins loaded up, ready to go back to their home office. And she said, yeah, as long as I didn't make a mess. Now, there's some stores are going to tell you no because they've probably had people out there making messes and they just don't want to fool with that. But a lot of stores will tell you, yeah, that they don't care. It's just cardboard. Go ahead and get as much as you need. Well, I filled my truck up. And I brought it home and I actually laid it out onto over the grass, and that way it would mold down and wet down. And kill my grass. So that was a great resource. And also for cardboard, any that I had left over, I just put into my compost also, and it will eventually break down and turn into dirt as well. So it's a really good resource to be able to get, and it's usually free. You can find it, you know, if you don't find it at the first store that you go to, try a couple more. You can always call rather than go around if you want to, and just oh my goodness, if y'all heard that, that was a big fish just jump. I'm out by the lake now. Yeah, I think this is about the only quiet place I can find to do this. Anyway, cardboard is definitely a very good resource to use around the, you know, around your garden and everything. Another resource that I wanted to talk to you about was pallets. I know you've seen a lot of gardening videos where they're using pallets. I'm pretty sure that you have. If you haven't, definitely check those out. Pallets come in handy for all sorts of things. I actually have built my first raised bed out of pallets. So it actually didn't cost me anything. And you can usually find those around pretty much any stores that, you know, are going to get items. They'll come on these big pallets and they have nowhere to use them. So anytime you're driving around in town or and you see a store that has a bunch of pallets out back, just go in and ask them if it's all right for you to get those. That's always a great resource to have, because you can break them down and use the wood out of them. Kind of keep your eye out because some of them are chemically treated, so you don't want to use those actually built-in beds and around your garden plants. But there's other things that you can use those for. So I mean, there's, like fencing and things like that. There's tons of uses for pallets. And I mean, you can just go on Pinterest, and I mean, if you put in pallet ideas, it just tons of stuff comes up, and those are usually free resources that you can find around your neighborhood or in town, things along those lines. Another thing that I want to mention to you is slabs. If you live in the country or you live out of town, and there's sawmills in your area, my uncle, I mentioned before, my uncle, when I built my pallet potting bench, I used slabs, and my uncle was the one that had milled those because he has a little small sawmill at his home. But there are several sawmills in my area too, that, you know, you can always contact them, see if they're going to have slabs, see what they do with their slabs. A lot of times they just pile them up and burn them, and they'll let you come in. Sorry, I got bug again. They'll let you come and pick up a truckload. Sometimes they may charge you $5, $10, $25 for it. If you're getting a trailer load of pallets for $25, that's a lot of free wood to use. You can always run them through a table saw or use your skill saw or whatever if they're not uniform sized. But there's a lot of uses for them that you can just use them just as is. They make raised bed borders. You can use them for fencing. You can use them to build things with. Once again, that's another thing to, you know, check it out. Also, you can check on Pinterest, put in, you know, slabs, and all kinds of ideas will come up with them as well. So, I mean, there's lots of different things that you can do once you start thinking outside the box. Another resource that, you know, a lot of people overlook is old tires. You know, a lot of us may even have old tires around the house where we've gotten new tires on our vehicle and we have old tires that have been taken off. Or, you know, there may be mechanic shops in your area that put on tires that might have a pile of old tires out back that they're just going to pay somebody to take away from there. And they may be okay with letting you have some that are, you know, are definitely ruined, like blowouts and things like that, that are perfectly acceptable for you to use in the garden to make, you know, raised beds out of old tires and plant in those. That's another resource that you can always keep your eye open for. Another thing is when you're building trellises or arbors or anything like that, always use like where you've pruned bigger branches and things along and branches or pulled vines or anything along those lines. Sometimes you can even go harvest that stuff out in, you know, in the woods or forest. If you have access to any of that, be sure that you have permission to do that. But or even you have it on your property, always repurpose that kind of stuff. You can make trellises, arbors, all kinds of really cool. I've seen some really neat looking things made just out of free material that's just, you know, you would normally either pile and burn or haul to the landfill, and you can take that and turn it into usable things. And if it's something that, you know, even if you're not wanting to use it in building things, you can use it as far as fillers for inside raised beds. You can put that stuff in there and then put your leaves and then compost, and then that's an added filler for your raised bed. And as those branches and trellises, as those branches and things break down, then it actually feeds your bed and your plants. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I don't ever throw any of that stuff away, and very rarely do I burn any of it. And if I do burn it, I turn around and I use the ash that it makes in my garden, because that makes potash, and potash is a very good thing to feed into your garden for your plants and things like that as well. So I mean, I will in turn use the ash off of it if I burn it. But for the most part, I try to use them as full pieces if possible. Another thing that I want you to keep in mind as you're out in your neighborhood and going about your day, you know, you don't have to make special trips or anything, but as you're talking to family, friends, and other people, one of the things to keep your eyes open for is old windows, free old windows. I have some old windows that I ran across a friend of mine, and he was tearing down a house, and he had these just sitting out. I had to go by his house for something, and he had these just sitting outside. And I asked him, I said, "Are you and your wife going to use those for anything?" And he's like, "No, I'm just going to put them out for the garbage." And I'm like, "Can I have them?" And this was over a year ago, before I even knew for sure that I was going to be gardening now. And he's like, "Yeah, no problem, take them." At first, I was thinking that I was going to turn them into a home decor project, because they're the old wooden frame windows. and they are really neat to look at. But now that I'm getting back into gardening, I'm going to take those old windows and I'm going to make me some cold frames so I can extend my growing season a little further, and maybe even grow some lettuces and things on into the winter so we can have that fresh vegetable for as long as we possibly can. And I'm going to take this and make it actually out of free slabs and free old windows, and that'll be a future video. When I go to do that, I'll show you how I do that. But if you're out in your neighborhoods and things, you know, keep your eyes open, or talking to your friends or any of that kind of stuff. The worst thing they can do is say, no, we have plans for those, or no, I'm not interested, or no, I want $50 a piece for them. And if that's the case, you know, thank you very much, but no thank you, and walk on, or whichever you want to do. But that's just something to think out of the box with stuff like that. Some other things I want to touch base with you on: how to get some free plants. I know I put a video out on how I've had a big score because I went in the hardware store and I just asked, what are you going to do with those plants? And I actually ended up coming home with a lot of free plants. But there are other ways also to get free plants. The first thing is, you know, talking to your neighbors and your friends and your family. If any of them garden or have flowers or anything in their yard, a lot of people like to share. We as gardeners, we love to share. I love to share. When I have enough to spare, I am happy to donate plants and seeds and things along those lines. So, you know, like just the other evening, I was walking down the little side road by our house, and one of my neighbors was outside, and we struck up a conversation because I talk to everybody. And we struck up a conversation, and he had some really beautiful, that had a plant along his walkway that had this really beautiful purple foliage. And I was like, oh, that is gorgeous. What is it? He's like, I don't know. He had no clue what it was. And he said, but it just pops up everywhere. It seeds itself and comes back each year. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And he said, why don't you have some? And he pulled me up 3 plants and sent me home with them. I looked it up through my plant identifier app, which is a free app. I looked it up and come to find out it's a Japanese herb called shiso. I hope I'm saying that right. And it actually reseeds itself every year. So that's something that I will put into my herb garden, and I will continue to have that plant hopefully come back every year. And it didn't cost me anything. It was just a conversation with my neighbor who offered to share me that plant. And that was, you know, that's something really that you can do. Also, a lot of plants grow wild. A wildflower is just a flower that has come up where nobody planted it, that come up by itself. It's, you know, it just hasn't been naturalized yet in some cases, and in some cases it just because it's native and it grows wild. So a lot of times you can find things growing wild alongside of the road and get plants that way as well. Like my muscadine vine in my yard, I didn't plant it. It was here when I moved into the house. But I know that he actually went out in the swamp and found that vine and dug it up and brought it back and planted it. So, you know, and I've done that before. My mayhaw tree, I went out in the swamp, I found the mayhaw tree, I dug it up, I brought it home, and I set it out and I planted it. And now it's growing. So, you know, there's a lot of plants like that you can find wild, and you can naturalize them to your yard, or I don't know if that's the right terminology to use, but you can bring them home and plant them in your yard. My mom and I love to go on Saturday drives. That's one of the things that we enjoy doing together. And one of the things, and when we're doing these Saturday drives, we're actually looking alongside the roadways at the wildflowers. And we're either and a lot of times we'll stop and we'll collect seeds from them. You know, just a handful of seeds from that wildflower is not going to hurt it as long as you leave some behind so that wildflower can come back again. But we'll collect seeds from wildflowers along by the sides of the roads. If we're taking a walk through the woods, same thing. We'll collect seeds, or we'll take cuttings, you know, whatever comes into play, whatever's appropriate for that type of plant. So there's a lot of ways that you can get free plants that way. Just like if you want some oak trees in your yard and you go to a park, pick up a couple acorns, take them home and plant them. Yes, they take longer to grow that way than a tree that you would buy at the nursery, but look at the money that you save. I mean, it's quite a bit. So I mean, those are some ways. And as far as garden plants and garden plants, I mean, just look for opportunities like the one I had at the store the other day, or maybe some neighbors have some extra that they would like to share. You know, you can, there's always opportunities out there. You just have to, you know, be aware and see the opportunity for what it is. And always be appreciative. Always thank you. Also, I've joined several seed swap groups online, and they are really awesome. I've already received some really wonderful seeds, and there's Facebook communities and seed swap groups that you can join into. And you know what that is if there's a seed that you're wanting, and someone else has some to share, and you might have something that they have to share, so you swap. So those are really good resources. Also check those out on Facebook and online on the seed swap stuff. Just looking at my notes here, making sure that I mentioned everything. Oh, another thing is old furniture. Old dresser drawers in particular is what I was thinking of. Those turn around and make great raised beds. They're already built. You just put them down, fill them up with dirt, bam, you have a raised bed. And that's something to keep in mind if you're throwing out old furniture and it has drawers. You know, you can always repurpose those drawers into raised beds. Also, just be aware of your surroundings when you're in town or around friends or family. You know, be aware of your surroundings. You never know what kind of opportunity is going to be there. For example, today we ran to town. My husband plays guitar and had to go and pick up a set of guitar strings, so we went by the music store. Outside at the music store, I stayed in the truck. Outside by the dumpster were these long, narrow particle board boxes. Now, they're made out of particle board, so they're not going to last forever. I may only get a year, maybe 2 years out of them. But they were these long particle board, already built, narrow boxes. And there were 2 of them. And one of them was already cut in half. And when I saw them as we were pulling off, I said, hold up a minute. And I went back in the store and I asked the manager, I said, what are y'all going to do with those boxes out there? I said, they're out by the dumpster. He said, oh, those are for trash. He said, if you want them, you can have them. Well, unfortunately, one of them was still put together and it was like 25 feet long. So I could not load that in the truck, but the other one was already broken into 2 pieces. So we did get both pieces of it into the truck, along with there was a lot of extra particle board there that we were able to get as well and bring that home also. And I'm going to take those boxes and turn them into a raised bed, a raised planter, basically. And it may last for a year or 2. Hopefully by that time, maybe my finances will be better and I'll be able to replace it with treated lumber or something else. But in the meantime, there I have a free resource just because we stopped at the music store. And because I wasn't afraid to go in and ask, I have a free resource now that I'm going to be able to fill up with my free gin trash and turn into another planter or raised bed for my garden. Always be aware of your surroundings. Also, if I go back to town in the next few days, I may take my hammer with me and take that other box apart and bring it home as well. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if it's still there. It may be there. Someone else may have had the same idea I did. Also, at that very same place, there was a stack of 10 pallets that he was begging me to take as well. I didn't need pallets right now. I should have took them. Didn't have enough room in the truck once we put the boxes. But also, there's another pallet resource there for me that when I get ready to need pallets, I know that I can always go by there, and that gentleman wants people to come and take those pallets. And also any scrap wood or anything that he puts out there by that dumpster. And so, because that's what he told me today. So that's a resource that now I have, that if I'm looking for extra garden materials when I'm in that part of town, I may just drive by and just rubberneck over there and see, hey, what you got over there today? Anything I want. And I can stop and pick it up and bring it home. So just when you make these kind of connections, and when when you're not afraid to ask and you're not shy and you're thinking outside the box, because that's the thing. I was thinking outside the box, and I wasn't holding myself back by waiting. Oh, I can't use those because they're only going to last 2 years, or they're only going to last a year, because that's particle board. The minute I get it wet, it's going to swell up. Instead of thinking along those lines, bugs again. But instead of thinking along those lines, I'm like, hey, that ought to last me at least a couple years. And hopefully by the end, I can replace it with something better. Or if not, maybe I'll find the same thing and replace it with the same thing that'll last another couple of years. So it just, you have to just kind of change your mental thinking, especially when, because I held myself back for quite a long time. I could have been gardening quite a time ago. But I wanted to put in fancy beds and have a beautiful garden, and I had wanted to start a garden, but I didn't feel like I had the right materials or the budget to do it the way that I wanted. So I held off about it. And then it came down to my health get bad, and now a garden is necessary, especially in this day and time, because I want to grow vegetables that I know what's in them and that is going to be healthy for me and for my family. And so just think outside the box. Don't let money be an issue to hold you back, because there is so many options out there. Even if your neighbor only gives you a couple of tomato plants and that's all you have to get started with, that's enough. Grow something. If you're wanting to garden, and if you're watching this video, then I'm assuming that you're wanting to garden, then don't let money be an issue for you. There are resources out there, and as I think of more, I'll share them in my videos. So please like and subscribe and follow my channel, because I'm going to keep putting content like this out, because I know how it is. I know how hard it is to try to start something new like that on a budget. So please like and subscribe my channel, and thank y'all for watching. I appreciate you so much, and blessings to everybody. Happy gardening. Bye, y'all.